Good evening, everyone. Welcome. If you would, please take your seats, and we'll begin our program prior to dinner tonight. My name is Hank Booth, and I am honored to be your MC tonight for the Dialogue Institute, Kansas, the 6th Annual Dialogue and Friendship Dinner, and the theme this year is Promoting and Enhancing Social Responsibility. I am honored to be here. I am sorrowed by the fact that my reason for being at this podium tonight is the fact that my dear friend, Kim Murphy, who has been your person doing the MC work in the past, is unable to be here because she's been under the weather. But she sends her love, and she's sad that she can't be here tonight to enjoy this program. So we'll all think very positive things for Kim, and she'll be out and about real soon when we send all those positive thoughts her way. We have a lot in store for you this evening, and we'd like to share our great, immense gratitude to the event's lead sponsor, Dialogue Institute, Kansas. And we also want to thank two supporting partners, the Raindrop Turkish House and the Fountain Magazine. And you'll have an opportunity to get a free one-year subscription tonight to the Fountain Magazine as the evening goes along. Please take advantage of that. Our other sponsors include and I think many of you have tables here tonight. You can kind of wave at everybody when I go through the list. The Jewish Community Center, Ecumenical Campus Ministries, First United Methodist Church, St. John Evangelist Catholic Church, St. Margaret Episcopal Church, Trinity Lutheran Church, St. Luke African American Methodist Church, St. Lawrence Catholic Campus Center, Plymouth Congregational Church, Unity Church of Lawrence, the City of Lawrence, and AC Management. Thank you all for your sponsorship, and let's give them a big hand, all right? Now, as it is with any group, we're always anxious and happy to find some donation among our guests that will go to the Dialogue Institute in Kansas. Some will help pay for the meal, but the community project that will be receiving some of the donations that are given tonight is the Red Cross locally. The Dialogue Kansas is a part of giving back to the community in many, many ways, and there is a donation box that you'll see on your way out later on this evening. But that's not the main reason we're here by any means. The other part of my informational beginning is to say the Fountain Magazine, by the name tag table, you can see the opportunity to get the free subscriptions for a year. And don't forget, the silent auction will be going on after the entire program is over for a short time. So if you have auction items you bid on, please feel free to continue to bid on those. The Fountain is a bi-monthly magazine of scientific and spiritual thought. It covers a wide range of topics, including interfaith dialogue, science, technology, arts, culture, society. It's concerned with global problems. It's concerned with the modern world, everything that is going on in our world. And I had a chance for the first time today to scan through a copy, and I couldn't put it down. Some wonderful articles. Please do take advantage of that one-year subscription that you can get tonight. I would like to welcome to the stage now a wonderful woman, Dr. Karen Miriam Goldberg. Karen, you can start this way if you would, as I tell everybody that from 2009 until 2013, the state of Kansas was blessed to have her as our Poet Laureate of the state of Kansas. And she has also been a part of many, many wonderful programs and projects through a long time around Lawrence. She's a wonderful author of poetry, fiction, memoirs, anthologies, and a nonfiction book on the Holocaust. She's a founder of Transformative Language Arts, a master's program that she teaches at Goddard College, where she teaches. She, with singer Kelly Hunt, offers Brave Voice retreats and collaborative performances. And Karen is now ready to welcome us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hank. I first met Hank over 30 years ago when I arrived in Lawrence, and he's just been a treasure for all of us, and let's just take a moment and share our enthusiasm. I welcome you tonight with an outstretched hand, and before we go any further, and I know it's taken a while to herd us all to our seats, and here I am about to undo it, I ask you to turn and shake hands with somebody that you don't know and greet them and introduce yourself. Okay, thank you, thank you. And now we make our way back to our seats. Okay. You've done a wonderful job reaching out to others, and thank you so much for coming back to your seats. Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. When I was asked to say a few welcoming words over a month ago, I had no idea how welcoming each other across faiths would resonate with so much more purpose and intensity since the actions of April 13th, when 3 people died as a result of the kind of hatred meant to diminish us. Our coming together tonight is imbued with this story in which hope, sorrow, grief, and faith break our hearts open even more. About a week ago, many of us came together for a vigil at the Lawrence Jewish Community Congregation, where Rabbi Moti reminded us that the killer, who had studied and plotted extensively on how to find and murder Jews, ended up killing Christians. That he couldn't tell us apart shows how much our faiths are entwined. Muslim, Jew, Christian, Hindu, agnostic, Buddhist, spiritual, or however our faith names us or we name our faith. The day of the shooting, I was driving home from Topeka, where I had just presented a talk on the Holocaust and my book on it, where we discussed the extremes of this type of hatred that then that very day took the life of a man, a woman, and a teenager. History is alive, and its lessons wrap around us more closely during times like this, which means we need to look more closely at history and wrap around each other more tightly. I felt this so fully during the vigil last week when those who were there sang songs from my Jewish tradition, which moved me and still moves me immensely. While many of us do feel more vulnerable right now, I believe that many of us, if not all of us here, are grateful to be part of events like this, in which we come together in friendship and respect to listen to and learn from each other. Yet the real and enduring loss and pain for those who knew and loved the 3 who were killed is beyond our power to heal. What we can do, we must do with an open heart. So let us take a moment of silence to send our deepest wishes and prayers for comfort and peace to the families and friends of Terry Lamano, who her daughter called a beautiful soul, Reet Griffin Underwood, a high school student who loves singing and life, and Dr. William Lewis Corporon, a beloved physician and family man. May their memories be for blessing. And now I share with you this welcome poem. With an outstretched hand. With an outstretched hand, you turn to me and I turn to you. At the moment, we're united by what was meant to divide us. The night cools around us, the next day rises. Still, nothing we know can speak comfort except the passage of time behind us, ahead of us, and right now. The lantern that leads us from here to there, where we can speak without fear or forgetting what's inside our roundest words. The tree of life on the corner powers into blossom. The soft rain welcomes us home to synagogues, mosques, churches, to clearings in the cedars or prairies bowed low by wind, to sudden ponds round as the rounding moon that sheds light to remind us how much is alive and calling our true names in the darkness. We reach toward each other in sorrow, in outrage, in strengthened and shaken courage, and hold on tight. We hold the loss of those we love or never got a chance to meet, and find the light shimmering after the storm, catching our faces at dusk as we turn toward each other. Love what teaches us to stretch new ways in love. The dissolving sky of one April day reaches out its outstretched hand to lead us out of the desert, where my outstretched heart meets yours, yours meets mine, and we cross over in the cacophony of our prayers. Allah, thunder, God, Great Spirit, Jesus, first lily of the valley, Buddha, Krishna, expanding cosmos, homecoming all to the world held together by our outstretched hands. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Karen. And next, our next speaker, Dr. Shanna McAleer, will be talking about events that the group has had through the year. Shanna is an ordained minister who grew up living all over the world. Listen to this list. She was born in Libya, raised in Greece, the Philippines, Turkey, and has lived in many states here. She's always been and had a keen interest in cultures and more specifically other faith traditions. She served at 2 churches in Lawrence and Sacramento and is currently serving as the Director of Children's Ministries for the First United Methodist Church in Lawrence. Jen is a member of Plymouth Church right across the street, and she's also taught in the Department of Social Welfare in Sacramento and is currently teaching both undergraduate and graduate courses at KU. Welcome. We're glad to have you.
How fancy was that? Wow, that sounds pretty impressive. But for all of you here today, the minute we walk into a room and meet eye to eye, we're friends. And so simply think of me as your friend Shanna, okay? I love Karen's poem, and I've heard that poem before, and I was thinking about this evening, and before I get into some of the specifics about what we do with the Dialogue Institute, I'd like to read a passage to you from the book So That Others May Live. And it's written by, to me, one of the wisest men that I have read about and listened to, a man truly of peace and forward thinking and love, and his name is Fethullah Gulen. Love is like an elixir that gives us life. We are happy with love, and with love we make those around us happy. For humanity, love is life, and it is through love that we encounter each other. Love is the strongest bond that God has created among us. It is a chain that links all of humanity together. Without love, the world is nothing but a ruin. People have their kings, even bees and ants have their queens, and each takes the throne in a different way. But love does not fight for ascendancy. It is already enthroned. The tongue and lips, the eyes and the ears then become love's fanfare, valuable when they proclaim it. But love is valuable for its own sake, and the heart is priceless when love has made its palace there. The flags and standards of love conquers castles without bloodshed, and even the greatest of kings will become love's humble servant. So now we're going to have a PowerPoint describing some of the things we do. One of the roles I play is a beautiful and humbling experience serving as the vice president of the KU chapter of the Dialogue Institute. And so I get to be part of a lot of the activities that the group does. And my experience living in Turkey was one of the things that really drew me into the organization, followed closely by a young man named Eyüp Esen, who has that smile that says, come and join us, and who can say no, right? I mean, there's a lot of you here who know that. I know that. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the importance of the Dialogue Institute in Kansas and why it is important to us as individuals. For one thing, for all of us, and certainly for myself, I believe it's this type of meeting, this type of gathering among people of all faiths, all backgrounds, traditions, races, ages, sizes, all the differences that we can find are all similar in one way, and it's the way of peace. We want to understand each other. We want to create a world that's more peaceful, and that's why we're here tonight. We have dialogue and friendship dinners. They are held in Kansas City, Lawrence, and Wichita. Each dinner that we serve meets 200 people. And we have over 200 people here tonight, I believe. We meet with people who are elected officials, university people, faith leaders, students, attorneys, and anyone in the community whose heart draws them to be with us. We also offer Interfaith Academy. This is new this year. It's a project that started here in Lawrence. It is a part of our social responsibility and outreach that we do. It's made up of Jewish, Christian, and Muslim people. It is a dialogue educational program. It's a collaborative initiative created by the Dialogue Institute of the Southwest, the Jewish Community Center, Ecumenical Campus Ministries, First United Methodist Church, St. John Evangelist Catholic Church, St. Margaret Episcopal Church, Trinity Lutheran Church, St. Luke African American Episcopal Church, AME, and it's people who have come together with a singular cause. And that cause is to have people come in relaxed settings in churches and synagogues and mosques and temples and stone circles and anywhere they meet and learn about each other's faiths. We also offer community dinners. If you haven't been to one of the community dinners or to some of the other events where you are served the incredible elixir of the world known as Turkish food, I encourage you to come to a dinner sponsored by our Turkish brothers and sisters because you'll never forget it. So we organize dinners of Abrahamic tradition where we have an individual topic, and that topic will be spoken to by 3 different people: a person who is Christian, a person who is Jewish, and a person who is Muslim. And so that is the consistency, those 3 major Abrahamic traditions, speaking to various topics. So always look for which topics they're doing, because something will grab you and you'll say, I want to hear that. They're very powerful. The purpose, of course, is to share thoughts and ideas and share a meal and share fellowship time together. Thanksgiving dinner. We also have Thanksgiving dinner. Did I just accidentally go, I heard it in my ears afterwards. Yes, well, you can see I enjoy all these dinners. Last year, it was held at St. John the Evangelist Catholic Church. We have cooking classes. Now, even though you might be an amazing cook, fellas, this is for women and women only. Every other week, there are cooking classes. Women come together to cook, to have fun, to talk, to share, and to get to know each other. Saturday breakfasts. Every Saturday, we have breakfast at the local branch, the Raindrop Turkish House. It's a sister organization to us. And that's where the Dialogue Institute of Kansas has its branch. It is in Lenexa, Kansas. If you ever want more information about it, just EIP can connect you in, or you can go to the website and see what's going on. And they're very relaxed, and it's a lot of fun because you get to meet a whole bunch of people that have some things in common with you, but are also different and unique. So I stayed with the Turkish family 2 years ago, and one of the things they said to me really struck me as the center of why we do what we do. And that is, this young man said to me, the first night you visited, you were a guest, but now this morning you are family. And that's how I was treated the rest of the time I was there. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about getting to know people who are from Turkey and their amazing hospitality. Next is community sharing. This year, there was a large donation of ashura, which is the meat that was sacrificed and blessed. We gave 500 pounds of the meat, right, Aunt? To the food bank, and also to a place in Wichita, if I recall. We also do Noah's pudding. How many people have had Noah's pudding at their church or place of worship? It's delicious, and I love the idea. It's sort of like that old story, stone soup. The idea is, on the ship, the prophet Noah didn't have much left to eat. And so they gathered little bits of whatever it was that they had in their larder, and they made a pudding. And they called it Noah's pudding. In Turkey and some other countries, it's common among Jews and Christians and Muslims to cook and share Noah's pudding with their neighbors. And we are maintaining that tradition here. And you will not find any description of this in the Hollywood version of Noah. So if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. One of our social responsibility projects, so that everyone knows that we care about our local communities, we have totally donated 2,000 pounds of meat to the local food bank here in Lawrence and in Wichita. And then we cooked also for Link over Ramadan. I was blessed to be able to go with the group to give the meat at the food bank this year. And the director of the food bank came up to me, and she was tearful, and she said, you know, oftentimes the only meat the customers that come into the food bank get is a small amount of meat found in a can of ravioli. And I thought about that in the truly opulent way that most of us here in the United States eat. And I thought, what an incredible gift this meat is to this community. And people were so excited to go and pick out their bag of fresh, healthy meat out of the coolers. It was really something to watch. Our next slide is just another picture, I think, of, well, we skipped a little picture, where I missed the picture of Noah's pudding. These are Ramadan fast-breaking dinners. How many of you have been to a fast-breaking dinner? Another fantastic opportunity to share with each other and get to know each other better, and to share our faiths and have ideas and create peace. My opinion, Ramadan fast-breaking dinners are nice, but if you are truly dedicated, you will go to a pre-dawn breakfast. I learned that you don't really want to have a fast-breaking dinner with the same family that you're having the pre-dawn breakfast, because you just really only are separate for about a half an hour. You go home finally and you lay your head down, you wake up and say, oh, it's 2 o'clock, gotta go to breakfast. So that's for I challenge you, I throw the gauntlet before you and say, people, really show your commitment, attend a pre-dawn breakfast. It's an amazing group. It is a group that has deeply touched my heart. I'm very, very blessed and humbled to be part of this group and all the efforts that you've seen tonight. And so I can't think of anything more fitting than having another quote by Mr. Gulen that talks about why we're all here. The heart is humanity's most essential feature and its greatest treasure. It is the expression of our spiritual existence, the source of all our feelings and beliefs, and the pathway to our soul's ultimate depths. Those who walk on the path of the heart will not experience any darkness, and those who soar on the wings of their hearts will surmount any obstacle. Human virtues are cultivated on the hillsides of the heart. Faith, love, and spiritual pleasures are the fruit in its gardens. Thank you.
We'll now hear from Dr. Eve Levin, a professor of history at the University of Kansas. Her area of specialization is Russia and Eastern Europe, and her research concentrates on the pre-modern period of the 19th to the 18th centuries. Major publications include the monograph, Sex and Society in the World of the Orthodox Slavs from 900 to 1700, and the translation of Natalia Pushkareva's book, Women in Russian History, which won the Helt Prize for Best Translation in Slavic Women's Studies. In addition, since 1997, she served as editor of the Russian Review, a major interdisciplinary academic journal now hosted by KU. She teaches courses on the history of Christianity. She's a member of the Lawrence Jewish Community Congregation and also on the board of the community group and Interfaith Dialogue. Dr. Levin.
Okay. I'm Jewish, as you've heard, and my academic specialization is the history of Eastern Orthodox Christianity. I came to this dinner tonight with a Muslim friend because I'm currently unable to drive. It's a sprained knee. Mormon friends came over to my house on Friday afternoon to finish planting my garden. That's how I got the sprained knee. Jewish friends came over to water the garden and brought me fresh picked asparagus. My graduate student, I don't know her religion, she's a generous person, took me to the urgent care clinic and brought me food and medicine and brought me my research materials. Their generosity reminds me that even in the midst of this minor adversity, I have many people to be grateful for. The friends who have helped me in my time of temporary disability are living the golden rule: do unto others as you would have done to you. It is central to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and indeed to every faith tradition and every ethical philosophy on the planet. In the Jewish tradition, tzedakah, charity, is a commandment. That means it is not optional, something for people to do if they feel so inclined. Instead, it is incumbent upon everyone to give of their property, their time, their energy, their abilities, as they are able. Moses Maimonides, the greatest rabbi of all time, who lived in Muslim Spain in the Middle Ages, outlined 8 degrees in the giving of charity. The lowest is giving unwillingly, perhaps the way we do when we pay our taxes. It is better to give willingly and generously and anonymously. The highest level is helping to forestall people falling into poverty in the first place by giving a gift or a loan or helping them to find employment or start a business. The obligation to help others is not limited to your family or your own religious community. Our prayer services remind us, you were strangers in the land of Egypt, and therefore we are obligated to help anyone in need, and not only fellow Jews. The Jewish community promotes a culture of charitable giving. We celebrate joyous occasions by giving donations to make the community a better place. We commemorate sad occasions, such as the death of a relative, by giving donations. It is a tangible manifestation of a spiritual imperative to heal the world, in Hebrew, tikkun olam. In Islam, charity is so central that it forms one of the 5 pillars of faith, a mandatory observance. The Quran teaches, it is not righteousness that you turn your faces toward east or west in prayer, but it is righteousness to spend of your substance out of your love for God, for your kin, for orphans, for the needy, for the wayfarer, for those who ask, for the ransom of slaves. The same lesson is found in the Hebrew Scriptures, in the book of Isaiah. In the New Testament, Jesus devoted much of his short ministry to the same goals, feeding the hungry and healing the sick. Charitable foundations have long been central to Islamic communities. When I visited Turkey last summer on a tour sponsored by the Dialogue Institute of the Southwest with our own Eyüp Essen as the best tour guide in the entire world, we visited on this tour the headquarters of a disaster relief organization, Kimse Yok Mu. Among the many places around the globe where they have rendered assistance is New Jersey. They helped people displaced by Superstorm Sandy. Americans are accustomed to always being the donors, but there are times when we, too, need the help of others. Christianity shares the same perspective. St. Paul emphasized Christians' obligations to others. In 2 Corinthians, he wrote, "If we give eagerly according to our means, that is acceptable to God. He does not ask for what we do not have." There is no question of relieving others at the cost of hardship to yourselves. It is a question of equality. At the moment, your surplus meets their need, but one day your need may be met from their surplus. The aim is equality. Paul understood that spiritual well-being requires us to be generous to others. But even more than that, he recognized that spiritual well-being and community cohesion also require that every one of us should need help from others at some times. The early Christian teacher, Isaac the Syrian, expanded upon Paul's ideas. In a medieval Slavic translation of one of his homilies, I found it in a manuscript in the Spencer Research Library here at KU, Isaac the Syrian taught, "If you have extra over your daily needs, give it to the poor. Nothing brings one closer to God than charity." Isaac admonished listeners further, "Do not distinguish between rich and poor, and do not strive to identify the worthy from the unworthy. If someone is an unbeliever or a murderer, still he is your brother, of the same nature as you, and he strayed from the truth only for lack of knowledge. May all people be to you as the righteous, for through your action the unworthy may be brought to good." In our day, when so many of us worry about undeserving people getting handouts, we should remember Isaac the Syrian's wise words and recognize that acts of charity are always worthy. It is certainly blessed to give to others, but the recipients are also blessed, not only materially, but spiritually. I myself have been reminded of this in the past week. I'm grateful to live in a time and place where I can imbibe spiritual wisdom from many traditions, where I can share what I have learned with people who come from a variety of places, backgrounds, and philosophies. Today, in this place, all of us here are taking a quiet stand to affirm our common humanity and our mutual responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope there is a way I can see those words again. I want to go back over them. There was so much thought in those. I want to be able to see those and read them again. Thank you very much. I have to tell you, I have been emceeing events for about 60 years. I'm 67, so I started in my early years. But I have to also say that what I am going to do now, I have never had the blessing to do. I am going to introduce a woman, a whirling dervish. And I'm honored to do so because tonight we're going to have Malika Lyon, a Sufi initiate, and Semazen, whose study over the past 20 years has taken her to India and Turkey. She participates regularly in 5 rhythms ecstatic dance and sings and plays mandolin for dances of universal peace as well as for spiritual singing and chanting. She performs with Lana Marie and the Sonic Mystics, Whole Earth, Kirtan, and Ras Mandala. She is retired from KU, where she was an instructor for the Applied English Center. Now, we are going to have some of the music talk as I tell you that the turn that she is going to do is a whirling devotional meditation for the Semazen who performs it, and a divine blessing for everyone in this room. The right hand reaches out, palm up, to receive these blessings while the left hand is palm down, to bring them to the earth. The tall hat, the thika, represents the headstone, while the white garment, the tenur, represents the shroud, reminding us that we don't come into this world to stay, but will one day have to leave it. The whirling practice was started by the great Sufi poet and mystic Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi in the region of Konya, Turkey, in the 13th century. It was maintained, and it has continued to maintain through those centuries. Malika. understand that the Reverend Peter Lucky is going to present our invocation this evening, and I was looking around the room for Peter, and I realized that I don't see him here. Nancy, I'd like to call on County Commissioner Nancy Tillman to stand in for Peter, if she might do that. I know she stood in the same pulpit from time to time that Peter stands in at Plymouth Church, and she is an ordained minister, and I think we need that tonight. So we thank you. County Commissioner Nancy Tillman, and our invocation. Thank you.
Let's pray. Gracious God, creator of us all, we thank you for the spirit in this room. Thank you for the open minds and warm hearts. Thank you for the generosity of our hosts and for the willingness of the guests to be a part of this great gathering. Let your spirit be among us as we enjoy our food. Thank you for the hands that prepared it, for the people who grew it, and for the earth that sustained it. We ask for your blessing this night. Go with us all this evening and every day forward. Amen. Thank you.
And I believe, thank you very much, our union host will now prepare and serve our dinner. Thank you. Consultant on Catholic-Muslim relations for the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops and the Catholic Association for Ecumenical and Interreligious Officers. He sits on the editorial board of the Journal of Islamic Law and Culture and is co-editor of the forthcoming Dictionary of Christian-Muslim Relations. In addition to working on a current book project focusing on triumphalism in Christian-Muslim relations, he is the author of a number of articles in Islamic history, Quranic studies, Christian-Muslim relations, and interreligious dialogue, published in many scholarly journals, encyclopedias, and edited volumes. You notice I didn't look up from the sheet while I read those. He is, of course, a wonderful guest to have here in Lawrence for this meeting tonight. Scott was one of 5 U.S. scholars to be awarded an Association of Theological Schools Lilly Faculty Fellowship in support of his research and writing. And let us give a Lawrence, Kansas welcome to Scott Alexander.
Thank you, Hank. Thank you very much. I'd like us all to thank God by thanking Hank for this fortuitous set of circumstances that allowed him to step in and be our MC this evening. What a wonderful job he's doing. Tonight's theme, if you haven't caught it already, is promoting and enhancing social responsibility. It's a daunting task to say something about this, especially in front of a group of folks like you. And I'll say a little bit more about a story this task reminds me of in a moment. But before that, I want to just pay deference to a very important tradition of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, which in Arabic reads, Man la yashkurun nas, la yashkurullah, which simply translates, the one who doesn't thank his or her fellow human beings cannot possibly thank God. So I want to begin by thanking all the members of the Dialogue Institute, Raindrop Turkish House, all the folks at Fountain Magazine, who have worked so hard and or contributed so much to make this evening of fellowship and Thanksgiving and celebration of some of the luminaries in this beautiful community of Lawrence, Kansas possible this evening. I especially want to thank Salahuddin Aydinabi and Ayub Esnabi for their friendship and their generous invitation to be with you here this evening. And also call your attention to all those co-sponsors on the back of your program. I'll say a little bit something more later in my remarks about the importance to an organization like the Dialogue Institute of cooperation with other organizations. We're all here being brought together ultimately to create relationships and to create synergies out of those relationships for transformation, for personal transformation and also for the transformation of our societies. So it's real important to consider all the various constituents who have made tonight possible. And last but not least, all of you for giving of your time and energy to come here and spend some time together. So thank you very much. On the subject of the dauntingness of the task of talking to a group of folks who are obviously committed to some of the best of human values and certainly to promoting and enhancing social responsibility, for me to talk to you about that reminds me of this story of Bill Fowler and the Johnstown flood of May 1889. It was one of the worst disasters in the history of the late 19th century United States. 2,209 people died. There was $17 million worth of damage, which I don't know how to adjust for inflation, but that's a lot of money when you move from 1889 to 2014. It happened because of the failure of the South Fork Dam, but this probably quasi-fictional figure of Bill Fowler loved to tell the story, as tragic as that event was, of how he survived the great Johnstown flood. And all of his family and friends loved him because of the energy and verve with which he told that story, but also had to sort of muster up a certain degree of tolerance to hear that story yet again, and yet again, and yet again. Well, at the time that Bill Fowler was being called home, he was a very, very devout Christian. His family and friends were gathered around him while he was on his deathbed, and it was almost as if he was waiting for his beloved pastor to come and visit him. So Pastor Tom came in the room, and he saw Pastor Tom, and his eyes kind of lit up, as fading as the life in his eyes was at the moment. And Pastor Tom came up to him and said, "Is there anything I can do for you at this moment before we pray?" And he said, "Well, yeah, do you have any advice for me, Pastor? If I'm fortunate enough to be welcomed through the pearly gates and into paradise, do you have any advice for me?" So Pastor Tom thought for a moment and said, "Well, Bill, you're probably going to want to tell the story of the Johnstown flood, right, once you get into paradise, to all the inhabitants of paradise." And Bill's eyes lit up even more and said, "Oh, yes, of course, I can't wait to be able to share that story with them." He said, I thought you would say that. I thought you would say that. He said, "Well, my one piece of advice is, when you tell that story to all the inhabitants of paradise, remember one thing." And Bill said, "What is that, Pastor Tom?" And Pastor Tom looked at him intently and said, "Noah will be in the audience." So I feel like I'm speaking to a group of Noahs about, promoting and enhancing social responsibility. I could learn much more about this from you than any of you could possibly learn from me, and I really mean that. So what I want to talk about is a movement that really is in many ways at the heart of what we're doing this evening. It's a movement that's sometimes called the Gülen movement, after its single inspiring figure. This movement coalesced around the teachings of Fethullah Gülen, whose words we heard earlier, thanks to the beautiful readings done by Dr. Shana McAleer. It's also known as the movement of volunteers. This is a global movement of service, which is one of the reasons why it's also called hizmet, which is the Turkish word for service. And this movement has a great deal to do with the existence of the Dialogue Institute of the Southwest, the existence of Raindrop Turkish House, the existence of Fountain Magazine, and in many ways even the existence of my own program at Catholic Theological Union, where we try to educate current and future leaders of the Catholic Church in interreligious dialogue. And in my role as the director of Catholic Muslim Studies, try to infuse the curriculum with courses that will help prepare young Catholics studying for ministry and even older Catholics studying for ministry to incorporate dialogue into that ministry, reaching out and building relationships of cooperation for the purposes of social transformation with people of other faiths. And that movement, the Gülen movement, or Hizmet, the movement of service to God and one's fellow human beings, has had a lot to do with supporting what I do at Catholic Theological Union. And in fact, we've had a number of different Muslim students in our program. And many of our Muslim students who come to earn their Master of Arts in Theology with a concentration in interreligious dialogue come out of the Gülen movement. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about this movement. And I want to do it in two ways. One is by telling a few stories. The opening to the greatest collection of poems, actually it's one epic poem written by Jalaluddin Rumi, who was the founder of the Sufi order, one of the legacies of which was the beautiful whirling that we saw earlier this evening. The opening lines to this epic poem called the Masnavi read, "Beshnev az ne chon hekayat mikonad, az jidai ha shekayat mikonad." Listen to the reed flute as it tells its story, complaining about separations. In these opening lines of this great epic poem, Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi alludes to the power of story. Indeed, this whole poem is an exercise in storytelling, because it's clear that Rumi understood the power of story to convey a message. The story I want to talk about is not so much the story the reed flute evokes, the story of the separation of the reed from the reed bed to make the flute, and the plaintive sound of the longing of the flute to return to the reed bed, which for Rumi is a metaphor for the separation of the human being from God and the longing of the human being to return to God. I'm not so much interested this evening in talking about stories of separation and longing for reunion, however beautiful those are, but rather stories of encounter, of coming together, of building friendships, and of the role in this process played by an extraordinary human being and spiritual leader by the name of Fethullah Gülen. So before I tell some of these stories, I just want to do due diligence and make a couple of observations in a more sober academic mode, kind of putting on my hat as an Islamicist and a historian of religions for those of you who are more kind of academically inclined before we get to the stories. The first observation might be a kind of categorization of this Gülen movement, this Hizmet movement, in terms of the broader spectrum of Islamic revival and renewal movements that have been part of the dynamism of Muslim societies from the very beginning, but that have played a very important role in contemporary Muslim history, particularly in the late 19th century and throughout the 20th century and now at the beginning of our own century. As a global spiritual renewal and social reform movement, Hizmet is focused not so much on politics as a vehicle for social change, but rather personal spiritual commitment and transformation as a vehicle for social change. And this is what I think makes Hizmet very different from a lot of other Islamic renewal and reform movements, where a lot of other Islamic renewal and reform movements put a lot of their energy into forming political parties in order to transform the political structures of different Muslim societies around the world, and in the vision of these movements make societies that are more just according to Islamic principles. Hizmet takes a very different approach. It recognizes that political party affiliation can be a very dangerous thing, that politics is the art of the possible, not necessarily the art of the visionary. And so while the Hizmet movement doesn't scorn politics, doesn't scorn political engagement and social activism, it roots itself in personal, spiritual renewal and reform. So when you read the teachings of Fethullah Gulen, you don't hear him talking so much about political systems and political policies as he does about human values, as he does about, as we heard in part of what Dr. McAleer quoted for us, love. He doesn't just talk about it, though, he enfleshes it in his own life. And this is, I think, part of the power of this movement to draw people in. Despite what their own understandings might be of how to politically realize some of these values in societies, what they're drawn to is the power of commitment to these values and the power of idealism in a world that oftentimes scorns the idealist. And that leads me to my second observation. So the first is one would define the Hizmet movement as a global spiritual renewal and social reform movement, but rooted in personal faith commitment. Secondly, I think, and I've already alluded to this a bit, that the movement really emphasizes the importance of example. Before I actually met Fethullah Gulen, I felt that I had already met him in the many friends I had acquired from the Hizmet movement. They embodied in their lives the essence of so much of what he teaches: humility, service, a deep concern for others, especially those who are suffering, dedication to family, commitment to self-improvement, and a willingness to learn from those who are different from themselves. Now, these are all very wonderful words, but in my many friends from Hizmet, working in so many different places around the world, it's been my privilege to see these people actually strive to put them into action. And the world is hungry for examples, not just rhetoric. And I think that's the other thing that draws people to the Hizmet movement, both those people that are very involved, those who help build this movement in its native Turkish soil, and those who animate this movement around the world, both people from Turkey and people who kind of link arms with the Hizmet movement when they recognize the affinities between their own values, their own ideals, their own vision and commitment to action, and those of the Hizmet movement. And some of those organizations in the Lawrence area are listed on the back of your program. The third point, observation I want to make has to do with a kind of commitment to what I call a neutrally critical assessment of both tradition and modernity. This is really one of the hallmarks of the teachings of Fethullah Gulen. He's very much a traditional Muslim scholar who's very immersed in the richness of the Islamic tradition and the heritage of the great Muslim scholars that have come before him, teaching in a variety of different historical contexts and a variety of different cultural contexts throughout the Muslim world. But he's also a man of the modern world. He's also someone whose eyes are open to the challenges that modernity and secularity, and especially in some ways, market consumerism and global capitalism, the challenges that those things pose traditional commitments to traditional faith. And instead of scorning modernity, in a kind of fundamentalist clinging to a reified understanding of what tradition was and what it ever needs to be without changing, or instead of suggesting that tradition needs to completely change according to the dictates of modernity, Fethullah Gulen engages in this very difficult process of having one inform the other in a fruitful dialogue, so that the best of modern values and ideals and realities such as democracy and democratic processes, and the best of traditional values such as concern for the poor and other traditional moral values can cohere in modern societies. The next point would be the emphasis that the movement places on the integration of mind and heart. The importance of both for any democratic and plural society is something that's emphasized in the teachings of Fethullah Gulen and in the praxis of the movement itself. Good solutions to problems can only be the fruit of hard critical analyses. You need the mind, you need the life of the mind, you need good science of all kinds, and of course good humanist critical analysis. But every rational solution to a problem must also be judged according to how it affects the lives of people, especially the most vulnerable, the ones the Quran refers to as the mustad'afun, or the beweakened or oppressed ones, right? The ones that the Tanakh refers to as the stranger, the ger, and the ones the New Testament refers to as those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. So the necessity to always integrate the mind and the power of the mind with the heart and the power of the heart. And then finally, dialogue. This characteristic commitment of the movement to dialogue. It's dialogue as we're experiencing it tonight, coming together and building relationships. But it's also a commitment to the notion that an ethic of consultation and partnership. The word for consultation in Turkish that you'll hear a lot of people in Hizmet use is istişare. It comes from an Arabic term for consulting one another. The movement is very committed to this notion that an ethic of consultation and partnership is extremely important for a healthy civil society, and really at the core of any democracy. And it's actually the movement's commitment to this value and this principle that has gotten it into hot water with the current ruling party in Turkey. Because that party is going into a mode, in my opinion, of trying to consolidate power and reducing its commitment. It used to have a larger and broader commitment to consultation and partnership with different plural elements of Turkish society. The Hizmet movement is still very committed to that. The current ruling party, not so much, and now this has caused some friction between the current ruling party in Turkey and this important movement, which helped to bring that very ruling party to power because of that party's stated commitment to democratic ideals and values. Now let me move, in the little time I have left, to the stories I promised to tell you. Actually, since I perhaps spent a little too much time on my joke and my analysis, I'll have to sort of pare this down a little bit. Actually, let me just tell you one story. I was going to tell you three, but I'll tell you one. It's the one that probably is closest to my heart. I had the opportunity a few years ago to visit South Africa. And I went during Ramadan to give some talks at various dialogue events, one in Cape Town, one in Johannesburg, and one in Durban. And when I was in Johannesburg, I was with some friends from Hizmet, and they brought me to a school they have. They have a school for boys and a school for girls. They brought me to the boys' school to talk to some of the boys. And I had a really engaging time talking to these high school students. And I knew they were from Soweto. And for those of you that know, Soweto is one of the infamous townships of the apartheid era, where black South Africans lived in one of the worst kinds of oppressive poverty and political marginalization that one could imagine. Sorry to say it's not much better now. The apartheid state ended in 1994, and the condition of the people living in Soweto hasn't changed all that much. But the people in Hizmet that run this school are visiting Soweto all the time. When I went to visit Soweto, I was with some Turkish friends, and the people in Soweto were waving at us because they recognized these Turkish friends, because these Turkish friends are always visiting the families of the students to talk about the importance of partnership with parents, in the education of the student. Taking time out of their day beyond the demands in the classroom to make these kinds of visits and taking this real personal interest in the flourishing of their students. So I got this social connection of the constituency that this school in Johannesburg, this Hizmet school, was serving. After I got a chance to talk to those boys, it was a very enlivening, engaging, and very interesting and provocative dialogue in many different ways that I unfortunately can't relate to you. I remember asking the principal back in his office what the religious affiliations of the students were. He said, "You might be surprised to know, Dr. Alexander, that 80% of those young men you were talking to are Catholic." And I thought to myself, wow, well, if this don't say it all about Hizmet, if this doesn't prove that my sense of the level of commitment and idealism, despite all its flaws and false starts, it's a human movement after all, is on target, was to hear that. Turks, a small group of Turks, leaving their home in Turkey, journeying thousands of miles away, to open a school, to have to raise money, to have to struggle with all the challenges of building an institution in a land that's not their own. And for what reason? To give my young Catholic brothers living in those extremely challenging social circumstances of Soweto a chance at a better life. And it's not for a paycheck. It's for the pleasure of God. And whenever you part with people from Hizmet, if they think you know a little Turkish, they might say to you, "Allah razı olsun." May God be well pleased. Because it's the raza or the rida of God that really is at the center of why so many people in Hizmet do what they do. I know it sounds too good to be true, but it actually is true. I want to end by just talking about a principle that is really at the core of the teachings of Fethullah Gülen, and I think ultimately sums up so much about the Hizmet movement and all the various organizations that it has spawned throughout the world, including the Dialogue Institute of the Southwest, of which all of you here tonight, by virtue of you being here, are a part. And this concept is hoşgörü. Now, hoşgörü in the English translations of the writings of Fethullah Gülen is translated as tolerance. And that's kind of unfortunate, because tolerance doesn't necessarily have a strong positive valence in, kind of contemporary American English discourse. If I'm tolerating you, I'm kind of putting up with you, but maybe not going any further than that. Tolerance may seem a far distance from the love that we hear Fethullah Gülen talking about in other parts of his writing. But when you understand what the word really means in Turkish, you see that distance automatically collapse. It comes from two words in Turkish, hoş meaning good, and görmek meaning to see. Hoşgörü means to see the goodness in the other, to see the other in a good light. Fethullah Gülen teaches that we as human beings are obliged to look at the world and one another through the lens of hoşgörü. Why? Because that's the lens through which God looks at each and every one of us. Not looking to find our faults, but looking to enhance our goodness, to promote our goodness, to enhance our goodness, so that we can promote and enhance goodness in the world. Gülen writes, quote, "Practice hoşgörü so that your bosom becomes wide like the ocean. Become inspired with faith and love of human beings. Let there be no troubled souls to whom you do not offer a hand, and about whom you remain unconcerned." End quote. We have some people among us this evening whose commitment to hoşgörü and whose commitment to some of the other values that animate the Hizmet movement we're rightly celebrating this evening. We have Representative Barbara Ballard, who I have had the privilege of eating dinner with this evening. We have Mr. Jeremy Farmer, CEO of Food Bank and Vice Mayor of this beautiful city of Lawrence, Kansas. We have Dean Danny Anderson of the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Kansas. Mr. Mike Goggin, did I pronounce your name right, Mike? No, Gone? Gone, okay, that's what I thought. I wasn't sure. County Commissioner, Douglas County. And Mr. Greg Moore, the Director of Link. We celebrate in them what Fethullah Gulen and other great spiritual teachers throughout the ages have called us to be. People who live to serve others, and in doing so, serve God. People spend a great deal of time waiting for governments and the powerful to act. They also spend a great deal of time asking how to activate the grassroots, never pausing to realize that we are all part of the grassroots. If, like some of the people we're celebrating tonight, we can commit ourselves ever more strongly to focus from waiting to doing, from expecting that others will do something because we don't have the power to act, to realizing that we have power that is perhaps beyond the limits of our current imagination of ourselves and what we can do, then maybe there's a chance. Maybe there's a chance for this experiment called Hizmet and all the good it's doing to find the synergies it looks for with all the other organizations in the world that share similar values. Let our prayer tonight be that with God's guidance and grace, we will find, if we haven't already, our own distinctive prophetic calling to promote and enhance social responsibility together and to live into it fully. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you very much. We have a wonderfully unique experience now as we're going to ask Aydin Kayir, a calligraphist, to come up on the stage, and I believe that we're going to have an opportunity to see what this wonderful art form is all about. Let me begin by saying that after graduation from Marmara School of Islamic Theology, Aydin got his master's degree in pedagogy. He got personal training from master calligraphers in Istanbul, where this art form is formed and has been in its best style for centuries. He taught himself calligraphy in contemporary form and learned to merge the styles of traditional and Latin calligraphies, as well as graphic art, which he spent a few years of his career. He's been to several countries: Germany, Switzerland, Singapore, Dubai, China, Japan, the United States, of course, Romania, Finland, Sweden. In the year 2010, he was in the World Expo in Shanghai. Many more, 25 countries in all. He introduced that many to calligraphy. He has represented Turkey in several art and cultural festivals worldwide, and he describes calligraphy as the art of giving form to signs in an expressive, harmonious, and skillful manner. I believe we're in for a real treat. Please come forward. We look forward to the work of Aydin Kayir. I would like to say that he will have a calendar that will have the name of someone here on the back table at the end of the program. So if you have a name tag, then there is a calendar for you back there with that name. Michael, be sure to take that to your mom, all right? Her son Michael was one of our wonderful artists during the meal. It has never been written so beautifully. Oh. And I have a new desk that I'm sitting at, working at, and I now have the perfect item to put at that desk for the rest of, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Do you have a few more ideas over there? Okay, all right. He does have one more idea here. That is going to be right there on the front of my desk first thing tomorrow morning. You can't do this on my radio show very well, can you? That's... Happy. Happy, happy life. Is there one thing you would like to add to that?
I wish for everybody happy, long life.
And is there one other thing you'd like to add to that, perhaps?
Something missing here. I'm gonna add just 4 letters.
4 letters to be added now. Aha! A very wise man. Thank you. Thank you. And again, there are calendars on the back table that have the name of our guests, so you have one back there if you're on this list here tonight. We appreciate you being here, and thank you so much. Let's have another hand for our wonderful artist. Thank you. It is time for awards, and to introduce those awards, I do have some very special people to make remarks tonight, but I do want to add before I introduce the first that one of our very special guests here tonight is the mayor of the city of Lawrence. Thank you for coming, Mike Amix. We appreciate that very much. Our first speaker before the awards are given is Charles Branson. Charles is a lifelong Kansan, elected Douglas County District Attorney in 2004, and began serving his first term in 2005 in January of that year, and re-elected in 2008 and 2012. He received his law degree from the KU School of Law. He's a native of Hutchinson. He started his legal career with a private office in the areas of criminal and civil litigation. He's also served part-time as the City of Eudora Municipal Prosecutor for several years before being elected here in Douglas County as the District Attorney. He's a past president of the Douglas County Bar Association, a counselor for the Judge Hugh Means American Inns of Courts, and has served on many local boards and campaigns, including the United Way, Van Gogh, and Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Charles Branson, our District Attorney, please come forward.
Well, thank you and good evening. Thank you, Hank, for the introduction. I always appreciate Hank Booth, a little bit of everything that's Lawrence, Kansas right there. I'm honored to be sharing this evening with you and our distinguished speakers, artists, and guests, and congratulations to this year's awards recipients for your accomplishments and your service to our community. I have to tell you, while I was preparing my notes for tonight, I had the wonderful opportunity of meeting Ayup and having an engaging conversation with him, and before I knew it, I agreed to do this. after looking at my placement on the night's events, I was telling Nancy Thelman, I think I'll stage a small panic attack and leave now. While I was preparing my notes for tonight, after AEP had convinced me to come in and speak a little bit, I all of a sudden realized I wasn't sure I had a lot to offer to this gathering and the people in attendance tonight. He asked me just to simply reflect for a few minutes, and in fact, indeed, he just said a very few minutes, and I will try to live up to that. Just some comments on promoting and enhancing social responsibility. And I was struck with a thought that I may not really know what social responsibility is. And the first panic attack, not the one I just had this evening, occurred about that time because I thought, wow, I'm supposed to speak about this. That's not normally my routine. Well, I'd heard the terms for years, thought I had kind of a general understanding of it. I've also have a general understanding of the concept of a social contract that we all somewhat live under and operate under. That belief that we have an obligation to behave in a certain way to live in an organized civil society. Well, each of us has an idea of what social responsibility looks like. It looks different to me than it does to you. We each have our own unique perspective with what we believe social responsibility to be. For me, as district attorney, it may be a drop in the crime rate. That may be the results I see of social responsibility. So it's easy for us to maybe define what we think social responsibility is, or at least the outcome of that social responsibility. For a resident of our community, it may be healthy, clean neighborhoods. For someone else, it may be that everybody has a nutritional meal. But what does it mean to be socially responsible? And that's what I kept coming back to, thinking, wow, I really don't know what to talk about here. And how does one promote or enhance that responsibility? As I continued my thought process for this evening, I started to ponder why someone would really want to be socially responsible. It's not easy, after all, so why do it? What's the purpose? Well, I would suggest to you that one of those possible purposes is to build a prosperous and thriving community. But then again, I ask myself, well, what's the point of that? I mean, how do we know when a community thrives and when a community is prosperous? It came to me at that time that a community thrives when the people in the community prosper. That the more individuals that thrive and prosper, the more the community grows. Now, when I talk of individuals prospering, I really don't mean wealth or money or those monetary things. To me, it means something a little bit more. It means something very fundamental when it comes to social responsibility. And all of a sudden, I started realizing what my answer was. The responsibility one owes to oneself, our own accountability. At an early age, we start learning, and hopefully, we start learning life's lessons as we grow. We learn that if we do not read and study, we don't get any smarter. We learn that if we don't save, we will never get ahead. We learn that shortcuts don't always work. But most importantly, what do we learn? Hopefully, as we grow and expand our knowledge. We learn that if we want to be treated with compassion and caring, we first must do that ourselves. Finally, I came to a conclusion, and that conclusion is really what I want to share with you this evening, is that to promote and encourage social responsibility, we have to look within. To promote and encourage social responsibility starts with us, each and every single one of us. Only when we become responsible for ourselves can we ever become responsible for someone else. And the message I would give you tonight, and my thoughts and quick comments on enhancing and promoting social responsibility is just to look within yourself and be true to what you know is right, and then you can begin to help others, and that is your social responsibility. Thank you.
We had that as a representative of our governmental units of the community that we live in, and we'd like to have from our religious community here in Lawrence, Father Steve Bissot. He is the priest here, the director of the St. Lawrence Catholic Campus Center, and he's held that position since 2006 and is the founding director of the St. Lawrence Institute for Faith and Culture. Father Bissot is a graduate of the University of Kansas and has a doctorate in sacred theology from the University of St. Thomas Aquinas. In Rome, he focuses his studies in Thomistic virtue ethics and issues of faith and culture. He teaches at the St. Lawrence Catholic Center and in the St. Lawrence Institute of Faith and Culture. Father, please come up.
It is within a spirit of profound gratefulness to the Dialogue Institute of the Southwest, and especially AUP for planning and hosting this event, that I am here as a representative of the Catholic Church. You know, many people throughout the world, especially non-Catholics, have been impressed by our Holy Father, Pope Francis. Most priests and bishops have had at least a few people approach us and say how much they appreciate him and what he is doing and what he is saying. And Pope Francis, in his simplicity, continually makes reference to a few concepts. And one in particular is relevant to our gathering tonight, our dinner. His reference to what he calls a culture of encounter. Now, culture of encounter is a broad term, but in general, Pope Francis seems to intend that in a culture of encounter, it's the idea of reaching out, of truly fostering dialogue and friendship, especially outside the usual circles. And above all, what our Holy Father, Pope Francis, wants to encourage us to do is to invite all people of goodwill to first become aware of and then encounter those who are most ignored and neglected by the wider world. So for our Pope Francis, encounter in some ways stands for a proxy for another important word that Catholics use, which is mercy. And mercy for us means, first of all, that our response when we first meet a person is compassion and understanding rather than judgment. And in a way, proper judgment can only begin in the truth that God calls us to be a people of compassion and understanding. Pope Francis has also pointed out in many different venues that in this era of globalization, it might make each other's neighbors, but by itself, globalization does not foster fraternity. In his message of 2014 for the World Day of Peace, he writes that the inequality, poverty, and injustice that exists are a sign of a profound lack of fraternity and solidarity. And so when our decisions or our actions, whether as individuals or communities or political leaders, are only made within the context of individualism or materialistic consumerism, we actually weaken the bonds that unite us, especially the bonds of those who, in light of those who consider them falsely to be worthless, those who are in most need of our help. But it's only by including, as our theme tonight proposes, a promotion of this idea of social responsibility. Whether it is this idea of responsibility as individuals, as families, as communities, or as political actors, that we really can truly stand up and be in this world but people who truly enter into this, what Pope Francis calls the culture of encounter. And this is a great blessing for all of us tonight to be among our many different people in this great community. And very once again, grateful to you, Ayat, for doing this tonight. Thank you very much.
And now we can begin our awards, and we're very happy to do that tonight, and I believe I'm going to be helped by one of our previous speakers tonight. Shanna, thank you very much. I do want to ask those award winners, as I call their names, to please come up as I read a bit of their bio here at the stage tonight, and we'll let them each have a comment or two to make as they receive their awards. And our first award tonight is to State Representative and wonderful Lawrence person Barbara Ballard, the Leadership Award. Dr. Ballard. Dr. Ballard has been with the University of Kansas since August of 1980. She is the Associate Director at the Dole Institute of Politics and has served as Associate Vice Provost for Student Success, Associate Dean for Student Life, and the Director of the Emily Taylor Women's Resource Center. She also teaches for the School of Education and Department of Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies. She is a member of the Kansas Legislature and has to go back tomorrow. I wish you well, Barbara. God bless. She was first elected to the Kansas House in 1992. She's been active in our Lawrence community. She was a 4-year term member of the Lawrence School Board. She became the first African-American president of the board here in Lawrence in 1987. In 1989, she was elected to another 4-year term on that board, and she served as president again. She's active in a number of groups in our community, the Rotary Club, the Lawrence Board of Trustees of Douglas County United Way, the Leadership Lawrence Board of Trustees, Cottonwood. She's a past member of the Board of Directors of the Lawrence Chamber of Commerce. She's been inducted into the KU Women's Hall of Fame, the recipient of the Don Volker Leadership Award. She has received many wonderful awards through her career of public service in this community. Her husband, Al, joins her here this evening. Their son, Greg, a graduate of Lawrence High School and a graduate of the University of Kansas, completed his medical degree at KU in 2000, and he is an orthopedic surgeon. And we're honored tonight to have State Representative Barbara Ballard join us to receive the Leadership Award. Barbara?
Thank you very much, Hank. I'm going to balance this way so it doesn't fall off. I'm going to make this really quick, but I do want to thank all of you who participated this evening. I've known Karen for a long time, and when she first came, she saw me at the University of Kansas, so I can't talk long, but I want to say your accomplishments have been wonderful, and thank you. And I want to thank all the others who spoke this evening as well, and I would make a comment. I'm a singer and I'm a dancer. But if I had twirled as long as Malika Lyon did, someone would have to help me down the steps because I'm sure the room would continue to go around. But that was an absolutely beautiful dance as well. So I would say thank you, and with the calligraphy, it was fascinating to watch this program. Dialogue and friendship. It's not very often you see where you're invited to a dialogue at a friendship dinner. And I think this is what it is. And this is really the diversity in everyone who's in this room. I would simply say thank you so much for my friends who came out this evening. And when I look at this, I'd say I have to thank Ayub for coming to see me. And someone asked me when, and I think it was in December. And Stella Houghton for being at the Capitol and seeing him often. And you know what I would say, when you think about our community, it's an absolute pleasure. It's an honor and it's a privilege to serve Lawrence. Our community has got to be one of the finest communities in Kansas. And if you have people believe in you and people who want to help you do something, you don't do it by yourself. You happen to be the person standing here receiving the award, but it's the community that allows you that privilege to serve. And I think of Shirley Chisholm. For those of you who don't know who Shirley Chisholm was, and she hasn't been gone very long, was the first African American elected to the New York Assembly. And one of the things she says And she was also the first woman to ever run for President of the United States. And what she says in her biography is, service is the rent we pay for occupying space on earth. Well, I think we all pay rent every day. And it's people that allow us to serve rent. And without our friends, we would not do anything. And I'm thankful for my friends and the people who believe in me. And tonight I just want to acknowledge Mary Weisert. Mary Weisert has been my dear friend and my campaign manager for years, and she's going through chemotherapy, or you would see her here this evening. No one does anything. I serve because Mary and all my friends made it possible. And I thank you very much for the award. And my last person, I think, who's really my first person, is my husband. Because I've never done anything that he has never been there supporting me. And sometimes I wonder how he puts up with it. But I think I'm worth it. So, I would say in many ways, it is an absolute pleasure. And when we talk about the gift we got, life was a gift that we got from God. What we do with it is what matters. So we all, in our own way, should think about living a life that matters. All we have to do is try. I thank you so very, very much.
Our next award is for education, and the Education Award recipient is Dean Danny J. Anderson, who leads the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences at the University of Kansas and began that position in 2010. A longtime Jayhawk faculty member and administrator, he served since 1988 in successively responsible roles. Anderson, whose previous position was interim provost, was chosen after a national search to succeed Joseph Steinmetz. As interim provost and executive vice chancellor, Anderson led during a time of change. He collaborated with former Chancellor Robert Hemingway, interim Chancellor Barbara Atkinson, and Chancellor Bernadette Gray Little to ensure continuity. He's also provided leadership during a challenging fiscal environment through strategic oversight for the Lawrence campus budgetary decisions. Anderson is a prize-winning teacher whose integration of service, learning into the classroom frequently serves as a model for KU's Center for Teaching Excellence. He has received a number of awards and fellowships, including a National Endowment for the Humanities Fellowship for University Teachers he received in 1995, the W.T. Kemper Fellowship for Teaching Excellence in 2004, and the ING Award for Teaching Excellence in 2008. It's our pleasure to present the award tonight to Dean Danny Anderson.
Thank you very much, Hank. First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here. The real tone of the evening has been one of generosity. Thank you for the invitation to be here. And I'm very appreciative for the recognition I'm getting here. The story that comes to mind for me is thinking about what we do at the university. I may be recognized in a sense, but I really represent many of my colleagues who are here. We have a real opportunity that many of us enjoy working with young adults. And they always amaze us because they are seeking to change the world. The students come in, and many of us use service learning as a way to work with them, to get them engaged in the community. And the thing that I find the most is that they walk in often very interested in what is it that they can give to our community. They're seeking to be generous themselves, but they learn from the experience that they gain much more when they are open in that way, the kind of things that they learn from the people around them. And so I know that that is a spirit of dialogue and friendship that we are here to give, but we also gain much. And so in that spirit, I'm very appreciative of this award. Thank you.
I really enjoy giving this next award because I get to give it to a Lawrence kid. He's Vice Mayor now and City Commissioner Jeremy Farmer. Jeremy, come on up. Jeremy is, go ahead, give him a hand, he deserves it. He's Chief Executive Officer of Just Food, the Douglas County Food Bank, and Vice Mayor now of the City of Lawrence, and he does receive the Public Service Award. Jeremy, a native of Lawrence, as I said, is the guy who has been helping to recreate and create for the future, not just the Douglas County Food Bank, but he's using models and now is being used as a model for other food banks in the country. Right now he's serving more than 10,000 people monthly through the food pantry and the 40 partner agencies. And I suppose we all ought to shake our heads a little bit and think 10,000 people, and it could be more before it's less. Since coming back to Lawrence in July of 2011, he's propelled Just Food from the fringes of obscurity to becoming a leader in social change here in Lawrence. He's an avid blogger. He describes himself as a Mac junkie and a big sports fan, and I know that's true. And he's an active voice for Lawrence, Kansas, and for helping to create jobs for the people he serves. He's passionate about being a voice for those who are marginalized in Douglas County, and he proves it every time he gets a chance. He receives our Public Service Award, Jeremy Farmer.
Well, thanks, friends. I'm reminded of my great-grandfather. I was thinking about this as I was sitting there tonight. C.D. and Emma Hargadine were my great-grandparents, and they lived until I was 20 years old, and I had an opportunity to learn from them and speak with them a lot. And one of the things that I remember talking to Grandpa Hargadine about is we often sat down over Grandma's ham sandwiches that were just better than anything else in the world. I cannot make a ham sandwich now and have it be any better than Grandma's was, so I just don't eat them at all. But nonetheless, I sat down with my great-grandfather as he was talking about the Great Depression and then World War II and growing up in the, raising kids in the 50s and the 60s. And I was fascinated by the presidents of the United States. And I remember telling him one time, I said, Grandpa, I want to be famous like that. I want to be remembered in the same way that I now speak of those folks. I want to do something that matters. And he pointed me to a quote by a Trappist monk named Thomas Merton. And Merton said this: "Do not depend upon the hope of results. You may have to face the fact that your work will be apparently worthless and even achieve no result at all, if not perhaps results opposite to what you expect." As you get used to this idea, it's a fantastic idea, isn't it? As you get used to this idea, you start more and more to concentrate not on the results, but on the value, the rightness, the truth of the work itself. You gradually struggle less and less for an idea, and I love this, and more for specific people. In the end, it's the reality of personal relationships, Merton says, that saves everything. And I'm here tonight receiving this award because someone struggled for me. I'm hopeful that someone else will be able to have an opportunity to receive an award like this in the future because we as a community do what we can to struggle for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. We have another great Lawrence servant here tonight, and he will receive the Public Service Award, and that is Greg Moore, who's the director of Link. You want to start walking this way so we can give you this award? There we are. Greg began working at Link 6.5 years ago. He was asked to take over the job there when the previous manager was leaving. And he says he was partly asked because he'd worked at the Salvation Army and knew a lot of the guests that would be there to eat at Link. And he has managed to stay longer than any manager who's ever been there before. And if you take one look at the size of this guy, you may see why, too. But besides that, there is a warm, genuine person here who is welcoming to every person who walks into Link, and who has been through a lot of different times down in the Link kitchen when things haven't been smooth and easy. And I know this from friends who've served there and from being there myself in the past. They've made important changes in Link. They've made it more of an appealing atmosphere around the room. And it's a great, great priority for him to make that someplace that people can walk into and sit down and eat as family. So we're glad today to welcome Greg Moore and to present him this Public Service Award. Greg?
Thank you, Hank. I don't speak as eloquently as previous people here, so I'm deeply honored, and I owe this to a lot of the volunteers that help me out every day down there. Thank you very much.
You don't get to go anywhere, Greg. We've got something else to give you. There's a little something special that we want to give you. I believe that, where's the doctor here? Dr. Iden, is he coming up at this time? I understand I'm supposed to be joined up here for a special presentation. If you would please, look right over this way, step right out here so we can get this. Would you hand that over there? I believe you have something special to present at this time, and if you'd like to tell, well, I'll simply say this has come from the money that's been given at the various dinners and meals and events that this group has put on. And Dr. Iden, thank you so much for making that presentation for the Link Kitchen. $500 for the kitchen here tonight for Greg to take home. And I do have one more award winner, although we only had one check tonight, Mike. I'm sorry to say that. Our next guest is County Commissioner Douglas County Commissioner Mike Gaughan, and he will receive tonight the Leadership Award. Mike represents the 1st District on the Douglas County Commission. He began his public service career in the summer and fall of 2002, when he left work every day to spend afternoons and evenings with his wife, Julia, at the Douglas County campaign headquarters for Kathleen Sebelius and Congressman Dennis Moore. He got his feet wet in politics and went to work for the Kansas Democratic Party. He served as executive director from 2005 through 2008. And Mike joined Governor Sebelius' staff as a legislative liaison in 2008. He then became a part of Governor Mark Parkinson's government affairs staff, and he's also served on the Kansas Advisory Council on Intergovernmental Relations, Destination Management, and the Lawrence Douglas County Metropolitan Planning Commission. The most important thing, though, is that for the last few years he's been on our Douglas County Commission, and he's brought important insight and good partnerships with a lot of different people in Topeka that have made a big difference for Douglas County. For our Leadership Award, County Commissioner Mike Gaughan.
The way I look at the program, I think you guys have to stay until I leave. I think I'm the last one. And I had the virtue or the opportunity to hear all of our previous speakers, and I picked up a little bit from each of you, and I started making notes, but I'm going to refer to a couple of them. I will note that I'm not even the first person to use my iPhone as a prop here. My first inclination about what I was going to speak to tonight, when Ahab told me we had a few minutes to address you, was to reflect, as Charles did, on the topic of the evening. But you can count me, Father, among those who are impressed with Pope Francis. He beat me to it, his tweet yesterday morning at 3 in the morning. Inequality is the root of all social evil. The basis for maybe what we need to be curing with social responsibility. I'm not sure where you are. Okay. Well, there we go. Okay. You can count me among the non-Catholics that are quite impressed and grateful for the work that he's doing and the words that he's sharing. I did, in hearing your remarks, Dr. Alexander, noted just one thing that you were describing the importance of Hizmet in Turkey, and you mentioned that there was that Turkish government leaders were consolidating power and rejecting a tradition of consultation. I think was how you described it, and how important the work that Hizmet was doing in light of those. And I was, as many of you may pick up from my bio, you know that I think often an awful lot about the state of Kansas and the and the direction we're heading in this state right now, and the idea of consolidating power and rejecting a tradition of consultation rings very true to me right now as a Kansan. And so I hope that the important conversation that we're having here tonight and the relationships we're building and the culture of encounter that we've heard a little bit about tonight, I hope that we're able to carry that throughout the work we do in this community. And I think that it's not a mistake that this conversation is happening in Lawrence, but from the conversations I have with people all over the state, this would not be an unusual setting in many places in Kansas. And I'm proud to receive an award tonight, but quite frankly, this is I think more of a reflection of us as a community and the ability that we have to come together and have conversations like this and have dinners like this and friends like AUP to visit with us. And in fact, AUP and Farhat and Robbie and I had a long conversation about, of all things, soccer. So if you're ever looking for something that you want to break down barriers with, I would say all sport, but I think it's mostly just soccer in America. And I'm not done yet, 'cause that's where I want to really get started. So, no, I'm kidding. I'm done. Thank you very much. And I very much appreciate this, but I look forward to many more opportunities to visit with you and visit with many of you. So thank you.
Well, let's all have one more good, deep, okay, get better, Kim, and then we'll say it kind of all together. Get better, Kim. All right, 1, 2, 3. Get better, Kim. All right, Michael, let her know we got that out together here tonight. Don't forget, we do have the silent auction items on the table back there that are still open for your bid, and I hope you do find something special back there to take home. Don't forget, there is that brown form that's on your desk, their table there. You can fill that out. Check off those things if you'd like to, but please be sure you do fill that out. We'd like that very much. Don't forget, you can get your 1-year subscription to the Fountain magazine. Just fill out that form back there. Stay in here as long as you'd like to. I'm sure that our wonderful team here at the Union will be happy to kind of clean up around you as you say hi and goodbye to your friends that are here tonight. We might give one more big hand to that crew that worked so hard tonight serving us our dinner. Could we do that? Thank you. And I do appreciate so much the opportunity to help with this event tonight. This has been the most fantastic thing that I've emceed in many, many years, to listen to all of these tremendous ideas. Kim said that I would learn a lot and get a lot of inside information to process for a long, long time. You've sent me home filled up with all sorts of thoughts and ideas that I've got to go to work on, so I better get going and get home and get to bed and do that as soon as I can. Thank you for everybody that's here. Thank you very much for your contribution.